You got it.
You got it. You hear that? Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. So if you welcome everybody to the third quarter Bike-Ped Committee's all neighborhood meeting. Really appreciate everyone showing up on this beautiful night. Not everybody's happy about Aiken. As you saw, we're going to be recording this. We also post this. I'll be posting this, sending the email out of the meeting out to everybody who's signed, or everybody who's on our list, as well as posting it on our website on the advocacy page, so people have a chance to at least revisit this if they couldn't attend in person. I'm going to drop in the chat a link to a brief agenda, and then I'll just also drop the agenda in the chat. So with that said, I guess since we have a small enough crew right now, why don't we just go ahead and do a quick round of intros so our guests know who's here. Usually we just have people type it in the chat, but we'll just go through and I'll just call names as I see across my screen for sake of efficiency. I see in top left, we see Roy.
Roy Weil, Trail Advocates, Squirrel Hill. Freeway Easy, Day Working, Steel Valley Maintenance Crew.
Thanks, Roy. Chris Sandvig.
Hi, everyone. Chris Sandvig, Mobilify Southwestern PA. Also part of the Morningside Stanton Heights Ped Bike Committee. Real excited about the Stanton Avenue meeting coming up soon. So welcome everybody here, and thanks for letting me talk to you all.
All righty. I see Alexander next. Looks like you have the right idea by posting up outside.
Yeah, I'm at a kids soccer game, so soccer practice. So maybe the sound is not too great. Alexander Schwal, Friendship Neighborhood. Hi, everybody.
Hi. See Susan.
Yeah, Susan Peterson. I'm actually on the board of Bike Pittsburgh and live in Friendship, and I'm super excited that the Aiken bike lanes work is underway.
Thanks. Clark, go ahead.
Clark Haynes. This is actually my first meeting. Eric invited me here to give a little presentation on some of the stuff we're doing, kind of tech for bikes. But I am a resident of Friendship, so I'm a neighbor of Susan's and Alex's, and excited to be here.
Thanks. Armin?
Hey, Armin Sammy, chair of Better Streets Lawrenceville, and this Friday on the intersection of Butler and Main, we're doing parking day. So between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., come by, we'll have some activities and just reimagine what we could do with a single parking spot replaced with activities.
Thanks. We're gonna go to Sarah.
Hey everyone, Sarah Jugovic. I'm the chair of the Walk Ride Northside Committee.
Thanks. Dave, you're up, Dave Silable. If you can just, if you're hearing, if you're listening. Okay, we'll just skip Dave for now. Everyone knows Dave. Doug Garrettson, are you able to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am. My name's Doug. I'm a member of the Walk Ride Northside Committee, and I'm retired at this point.
Cool. Thanks. Well, welcome, Doug. We got Morgan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Morgan Shaw. I'm a member of the Squirrel Hill Bike-Ped Committee, and I rode on the Aiken Avenue bike lanes today. Some of them are partially painted. Rode by lots of cars. It was very fun.
Yeah, that's even better.
And Yale. Go ahead, Yale. Thanks. Thank you, Armin, for getting that together. I was frantically looking for the how to do that. Yale, are you able to say something? Introduce yourself? Guess not. Well, let's just jump in. I had Chris. You want to go?
Oh, here. I'm sorry. I I just found the mute or unmuted. I'm Yale. I'm with the Squirrel Hill Bike-Ped, Friend of the Riverfront, Steel Valley Trail Council. Right now I'm riding with CMU. They're having their bike ride, so I'm listening in. We're good.
Yes, the Bike to Campus week is also this week. So, so go ahead, Chris. You should have sharing abilities.
All right, can everyone see my screen? It says Project 1965 right now?
Correct. Yep.
Got it.
Okay, great. So again, thank you all for, and particularly thank you, Eric, for giving me the opportunity to talk about this and collaborate with Bike Pittsburgh over the years. A little bit real quickly here on Mobilify and myself. So I have been working in transportation advocacy, initially exclusively on trans-oriented development, but more over the years into how we make our communities more accessible in general through coming at this through transit primarily, but also development, and now really focusing on infrastructure. And it's been a very interesting journey. Mobilify was created to really move some big discussions forward. And some initiatives forward, like this discussion we're having today about Route 65, but even at a smaller level, trying to help communities and municipalities become more non-car oriented, shall I say, in their development patterns and how they use their infrastructure, including how they access funds to do that and build support within their communities. So it's great to share this with you. The slide that the webpage that you saw, I'm actually going to drop that link into the chat for you all. And prime reason is because there's a lot out here on this. I don't feel that this group, I feel this group is probably knowledgeable enough about the history of interstate highways, transportation-based racism, redlining and its impacts. But the storyboard that I dropped into the chat there is I think, an interesting thing to share among your own stakeholders, to sort of talk about the story of why we are where we are in Manchester, as in Pittsburgh, basically in the United States when it comes to urban freeways. So what I'll do today is I will go through this project here and sort of give you sort of a context where we're going with it, which is really exciting, especially for where this region has historically been on these discussions. So, no presentation in Pittsburgh on these issues is complete unless we start with the original maps and the development of our neighborhoods. But this is, I think, particularly important in the case of Manchester. And so north is to your left here. We now talk about Manchester and Chateau, and it wasn't that far back when Chateau wasn't even necessarily a place. What is known as Manchester and Chateau used to be Manchester. And as you can see here, it's a little difficult to see where, Chateau as we know it today was, where the highway may be. And this is really how life in this area was up until, the mid-late 50s, whenever they decided to extend Ohio River Boulevard into the city, which is when we get into 1960s, and you can see to the bottom here, the literal destruction of half of the neighborhood. I like to go back and forth between these two to just sort of drive that point home. Block busting happening on the southern side. This was the fate for the entirety of the Manchester neighborhood, in fact, was to turn this into an industrial zone served by this highway that easy on, easy off, out to the suburbs, into the CBD. And it really wasn't until 1993 that this thing was actually completed. Now, in addition to what this has done to the community, you have an entire generation that is living with this highway-driven, block-busting, urban renewal blight. Leaders in the neighborhood literally standing in the buckets of bulldozers to stop the continual destruction of the neighborhood. And so this highway, as it exists today, we've heard a lot about freeway removal as of late. It's a very hot topic because of the federal infrastructure bill. It's a movement that's been around for some time. We not only have a freeway here that is elevated, a freeway through this neighborhood, but and not only is it elevated, but it is an elevated literal wall. So to give you sort of context here, the Chateau side used to have roughly 2,200 people living in it. Today, as of the last census count, there are 11 in the Chateau census tract, one people. It's not designated as low mod income because there's not enough people to really determine that. That tells you something about what happened here and just how complete it was. And this really, I think, shows you how much of the neighborhood was actually eliminated by the highway itself in the process. When we think about what this looks like here, going from one side to the other, close to 300 feet of gulf here, because it's not just the 6-lane freeway with its ramps, it's also the 6 lanes on either side of it that used to be main thoroughfares through this neighborhood. In fact, Beaver Avenue, which is on the bottom side of the highway, used to be the main street of Manchester. Manchester does not have a main street anymore. So there's been a lot of discussions and hand-wringing about what to do with this thing. How do we minimize its impact? How do we, maybe develop and bring people back to the river side of things? Bigger discussions about, what can we actually take it down, and actually some slightly bolder thinking that started percolating in the beginning of the last decade with Manchester Citizens Corporation, the CDC here. And this picture you see out of the previous attempt at a transportation plan known as BikePGH, which is now something else, to a number of design studio projects out there. And one thing just comes across: this highway must come down. It is way underutilized, way overbuilt, and it is just an absolute travesty on what it's doing to the neighborhood. It's actually in many ways creating both blight and gentrification at the same time, because as Manchester is rediscovered by folks, which has some of the, and it's a neighborhood with some of the most, unique architecture in the city, birthplace of historic preservation in the city, arguably one of the major birthplaces of the historic preservation movement in the country. Price escalation is going on. Speculation is starting to pick up, and we're literally hemmed in by this highway. There's nowhere for people to go. So this is where Project 1965 comes in. And it's really based in what started to happen throughout the neighborhood here. And also what I think is very interesting to point out is that Manchester Citizens Corporation was actually initially created to halt the erasure of the neighborhood and to stop the highway from being built. Now, clearly, they did not accomplish all of their goals here, but Manchester still exists because of the activists at that time who were willing to stand up and save what was left of Manchester. And I also think it's pretty interesting that both, it's US Route 19 and State Route 65. So where are we going with this? So lots have been written. It's a top priority in the neighborhood plan. In the near term, because we know this is probably a longer term proposition, we're looking at how we turn some of the space that's more dedicated for freeway activity into community activity. You're looking at sort of a cutaway here, not something laid on top of the highway. Opening up space for commercial and retail and community gathering, establishing a beachhead for commerce and what the neighborhood likes to think of as a beginning of a Black Wall Street within Manchester, and following some of the cues that we see of major dividing infrastructure in Europe and how we reprogram that at street level, looking more like this as opposed to the original here, narrowing the crossings, creating more of a plaza, a reason to be there as opposed to, well, I guess I gotta run the gauntlet to get to the bus stop on the other side. And then a two-way conversion of Beaver Avenue from the Juniata portal, which is halfway up, to better access both what's happening in terms of development down by the arena, or I'm sorry, by the stadiums, the Esplanade development, as well as to really start to pierce this veil, because these one-way streets on each side, not only are they diverting traffic away, they're also literal life-threatening and property-threatening dangers. Chateau Street itself is, people have been clocked going in excess of 70 miles an hour on that street. Folks have been killed on that street. Cars have ended up in people's living rooms. And, so the beginning of the traffic calming and the two-way conversions are a big part of that. Just some more pictures of what this looks like coming out of Allegheny Street. This is the big thing. And this is really, I think, what we're here to talk about today. Mobilify and myself personally, prior to this, while at PCRG, have been pushing increasingly and quietly and slowly building our base of support to take a hard look at dismantling this freeway and turning this space from really something that no one wants to be around and is the Great Wall of Manchester, which is what the neighborhood often refers to it as, into something that connects rather than divides. So when this is out of a presentation that we had done to start to build sort of a strategy with the Metropolitan Planning Organization, with the Redevelopment Authority, with the county, with Port Authority, with some folks in the EPA Brownfields world, a number of community-based organizations and institutions, and really looking at how we take down this highway to grade. So when we think about this, and I think, if you want to here, we can count this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 lanes without shoulders and medians across. This, if you've driven into Washington, D.C., and you've come down I-270 and you come over this hill and you're like, oh my God, this highway goes on in both directions forever. This is actually as wide as that, with at most an eighth of the cars on it. So, what we start looking at is to really start getting people to think differently about this and recognize that, design-wise, this isn't necessarily where we will end up, largely because it is still an expanse of asphalt, is turning this into a multimodal community boulevard. That includes, travel lanes as well as side lanes for local needs, slower traffic, bicycle infrastructure, which was, unfortunately, as we were putting this together, something our consultant overlooked. And I said, hey, about that. But in addition to that, what I think is really interesting is, despite how wide this is, you'll notice that the orangish piece off here to the left is actually reclaimed highway for developable land. So also reconnecting the street grid here, 4 intersections coming back across. And adding bus rapid transit up the middle, bus rapid transit or light rail transit. This fits in with the regional vision of PRT, as well as with the metropolitan regional vision. And really what we've learned in this is a lot of the 65 communities on the other side of the city line wanting the same thing that Manchester wants. They want Ohio River Boulevard to be a boulevard. It just so happens, from a capital project perspective, and the most controversial piece of that is this monstrosity within the city of Pittsburgh. So it's a transportation project. It's bringing it down to ground level. It's turning it into a boulevard. It's merging Beaver and Chateau into that, reconnecting a street grid. It's making Chateau Manchester again, quite literally. Sorry, city, we're going to go from 90 to 89 neighborhoods, but that's really, extremely important here for a number of reasons. It's a real estate project. We talked about Esplanade. One of the reasons why the developer is supporting us on this as well is because they know that what they're trying to do really doesn't work well unless they are connected to the rest of the world. And the highway is a big piece of that. There's new developable land, opportunity for riverfront zoning to really take off in these new land that's being created by taking down a freeway, but in addition to uses that we understand many folks here on the Chateau side are willing to talk about doing something different and better with what they have. And it's a community development project. Like I said, recombining the 2 neighborhoods, reestablishing some sort of community serving commercial district, permanent affordability through creation of a community land trust, strong connections to Manchester and the river, and a number of other connections that are really important there. So this is really kind of how we're getting there with that. As I said, this is a movement that has been going on for some time. But the bipartisan infrastructure bill law that was just passed really opened the door in a lot of ways for this. And also, I would say it's been quietly bolstered, and it hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but the Inflation Reduction Act also adds funds for these sorts of activities. So the RAISE program, which used to be known as Tiger if you've been around long enough, it's a discretionary funding program. It's now permanent, far more money than it ever had before. This is one of the areas that we were initially looking at to study the takedown of this, which, you know, I have to hand it to the city of Pittsburgh, in addition to their leadership and working with us to put this together and politicking with our elected officials. They brought PennDOT along to at least agree to study the feasibility of it coming down and what the impacts may be, which is frankly very important here if we're going to be successful. Reconnecting communities. This is what we're working on right now, quite literally. This is it's known as the Reconnecting Communities pilot program. It is also discretionary. It is a program that really encourages these joint connections between government and community. So it's, you know, the work that Manchester Citizens has been doing here over the years to bring folks together, and then Mobilify providing sort of the technical assistance and stewardship, and that sort of cat herding, an eye on the ball that many organizations structurally just can't take on in a lot of these things to get us to this point. And so this is coming up very soon this is due on October 13th. And then there are other things we're also pursuing here. The Brownfield Assessment Program was expanded tremendously under IIJA as well. And, you know, we are talking with folks about how we access those funds, not just to look at the highway coming down, which in and of itself is a brownfield, but what the reclamation and redevelopment strategy for the Chateau side of things would be. Other programs are available because of the census designation and other resources that are out there. So that's kind of a thumbnail sketch of this. I know I sort of rushed through it, but I did want to make sure that we left time for others to share and for any questions you all may have. So thank you.
Wow. Yeah, thank you, Chris. That was really informative and fascinating. If you guys don't mind, I'll start off with a question because it's really got the brain juices flowing. I mean, this is pretty ambitious, and this has never happened here in Pittsburgh, but obviously it's happened in other cities, so it's not like it can't happen. Where are you at right now with, like, what are the biggest challenges you got going on? And then following that, like, how do you foresee, like, the public getting involved or helping out in some way? Like once you really start getting to a point where that's necessary.
Yeah, no, those are some great questions. I appreciate those, Eric. So I think the biggest hurdle, the biggest hurdle is getting the funds to do the study first, but because it is not a cheap study. This is really sort of similar to an alternatives analysis for a new transit project is how we're approaching it. I think if I think down the road to, let's pretend we get those funds and we've built the coalition and we've assessed this, how we have the discussion about moving to preliminary engineering and design and environmental review for what the recommended solution is, which all of us, except for, quite frankly, PennDOT, expect to be dismantle the freeway, create the boulevard, and reconnect these communities. So the real challenge, I think, is how that plays out both here with our engineering district as well as with the central office in Harrisburg. But I think to your point on the community side, and one of the things we are building into this as well as any other grant that we do, and I am very glad that Reconnecting Communities all but mandates this, is a robust community engagement process and a formal demonstration of a coalition in support of this kind of study or the construction projects that it also funds. So we have a stakeholder group that meets every other Tuesday. We are formalizing that through an MOU. We look forward to talking with others and selling this dream over the next few weeks that we have, and hope that others can provide letters of support for this. As I said, I think initially Senator Casey and Rep Doyle are all in support of this. In fact, it was Senator Casey who recommended to the city that it be a joint community and city ask. So I think that speaks volumes to where our federal friends are with this. I think what's really going to be important here as we go towards, and I'm glad LaShawn's not here because I'm going to use the if word rather than when, if we get the funds, is building connections beyond the city line, particularly within other Route 65 communities, to help bring them along, because this is a project of regional significance. It does have impact on how they get around. Making sure that what they want to see in terms of transit in some form is in this, and it's not just a city project. Like I said, it just so happens the biggest capital part of this is within the city, and that's why we have to do this. But you know, NEPA was created to stop things like Route 65 from ever happening again. NEPA has been National Environmental Protection Act, which, you know, has put a lot of hurdles in projects. NEPA has, you know, affluent white communities have learned how to use NEPA to stop things dead in their tracks that probably should happen in some cases. So you know, there's additional coalition building along the way, not just the coalition that is going to, you know, get the funds to do the study. So, you know, I look forward to coming back and giving you all updates on where we are with this, especially those who are in the north side, North Hills, you know, the West End, along Ohio River, and you know, hopefully as we reach out beyond the city line to build that support. So
thanks.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's happy. I'm ecstatic. I can't, you know, it's I think right now we're at the point where, like, oh my God, we're actually going to do this. How do we do this?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's uncharted territory here in Pittsburgh. Yeah. So kudos to you for helping try to figure this out.
What a bold vision.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions? I'm gonna just go ahead and unmute yourself if you do. Otherwise, I have another one.
Chris, this is Sarah with the Walk Ride Northside Committee. Obviously, being in the north side here, if there's anything that we can do to support, I'd be happy to meet and talk through next steps with letters of support, anything else we could be doing to help with this. It's amazing and needs to be done. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And I just dropped my email in the chat, so please give me drop me a line. Let's get you all involved.
Curious, I'm just going to jump on with a quick question. Unless someone else has one in a sec. Curious, like who the main power players are. Is it the state or is it federal? Is it county? And how a new governor could affect this?
Wow. Let me start with the power players as they exist right now. PennDOT carries a lot of sway when it comes to these sorts of things, especially. If it were not for PennDOT saying, okay, we agree, let's at least take a look at the feasibility of different alternatives and get the pulse of the community about, you know, the real pulse of the community about what should happen here. Which, by the way, will involve us actually bringing on, you know, community organizers, door-to-door canvassing, not just your typical public meetings. As much as people in Washington within the Department of Transportation and elsewhere struggle with how our Department of Transportation at the state level does things, they also are very deferential to state departments of transportation.
Yeah. And
PennDOT is the owner of this facility, and one of the roads alongside it, by the way. And so them not actively fighting us as we want to look at this is pivotal in getting the support. The mayor's office, you know, I know, being someone who lives over in the East End, I know how challenging the whole Fern Hollow Bridge process has been. I also know that that process has helped the administration build a slightly more productive relationship with the local engineering district of PennDOT than the previous administration had, quite frankly. The previous administration was at least as enthusiastic about this as the current administration, but those relationships really do matter. You know, we got in trouble in talking to PennDOT out of turn from the elected officials, but it got the elected officials off the dime. But the real power play here is within the Department of Transportation, I think. I got to hand it to SPC. I expected whenever PennDOT called them and said, what the heck is going on, to do their normal thing. And like, yeah, well, sorry, you know, these crazy people over here. You know, they stood by the community. So one of the things I think that also helped them bring along is we had aligned vertically integrated support from direct service nonprofits within the neighborhood to the county executive and the mayor, to the head of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which has a say in how federal dollars get spent. So that was kind of how we were able, I think, to counter and sort of get a little bit of pushback against the, you know, what the department was saying. With regards to how this plays out with a new governor, I think, you know, clearly if Shapiro is in there, things continue along in the way that, at a bare minimum, things continue along as they have been, and we're expecting them to be for the next, you know, couple of years. I'll be honest, I do not know what a Mastriano administration means.
Fair.
Other than a bunch of us in the streets in general. You know, I think the bigger issue is how much what is the federal response to something like that as we head towards a presidential election? Do they want to drop a big wad of cash on Western Pennsylvania, which is sort of the epicenter of the epicenter, to as they like to do during those times? I think that has a lot.
Okay. Thanks, Chris, for the answer. Does anyone else have any questions? For the sake of time, I'm just going to try to move this along, but does anyone else have any questions before we move along?
So one more thing I want to share, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll drop this in the chat as well. So one of the things that we do, because we're not just staff, we're nerds here at Mobilify, is we host a transportation camp, which is a conference that you come with your ideas, you create the sessions, and you go off and talk about them. And Eric, I think, did this in 2016 with the Ped Bike Plan. So anything from something like charrettes to my bus stop sucks and I want it to be better, how do we do that? is all up for grabs here. So we hope that you can join us. We put it on a weekend intentionally so that people who are not in the line of work can join us too. You know, it's $25 general admission, $15 for students. If there's people who that isn't workable for, please let me know. But you know, please join us. It's a fun time. It's really chill, and who knows, you might find some folks to help you move some things forward and stuff you want to do.
Thanks for that plug. I agree. It was I had fun when the last time it happened. It's just a good day to like nerd out and meet other people who are also interested in this stuff. So
yeah,
thanks for that plug.
Sure.
Well, with that, that's a good segue. I'm going to introduce Clark. Clark is I'll just let you introduce yourself, Clark, because I don't know how you call yourself. So
Okay. Clark Haynes, as I said before, Friendship resident, but actually a startup company founder, focused on kind of mobility safety, and initially focused just 100% on bicyclist safety. I've met many of you, some of you years ago, some of you very recently this summer. I think some of you are actually signed up for our pilot program. And let's see if this shows up. Can you see this screen?
Got it. Yes.
Yep. Okay. Big flashy. It looks great. Looks stuff. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what we're building at our new Pittsburgh-based startup, Velo AI. A little background here. Let's see. Let me start with some information about myself and kind of where this company idea came from. We are a Pittsburgh company. I'll tell you a little bit more at the end of kind of what phase we're at, but we're very, very new. And this is kind of exciting because this is probably the most public we've shared anything about the company, even though we've been working for about a year. So you're all a good group of people. So we're really excited to share with you. I myself, I'm a roboticist. I've been working in robotics for about 20 years, including many robots, many of which were at CMU. Any of you in CMU circles might recognize this big red robot. We were designing robots to go into places like Fukushima. I actually got to go visit Fukushima to kind of get a sense of what are the challenges for robotics. But like many others in the kind of Carnegie Mellon NREC orbit around 2015, I jumped into self-driving vehicles. A lot of that reason was in all forms of my robotics work, I've always been interested in how can we produce things that make the world better. And at the time, I was like, oh my goodness, cities will be so much better once we have these self-driving cars. Deaths will go to zero. This is possibly the way to get Vision Zero to happen. We're 7 years later. I had a great time. And, that's how I met Eric, for instance. I remember the Bike Pittsburgh membership survey on what do you think about self-driving cars. There were a few interesting takeaways there. We can chat another time if you're curious. But basically, I ran a team doing traffic prediction for self-driving cars. So we were concerned with scenarios like this, where one car needs to go around another double parked car, and there's an oncoming car, and kind of what's going to happen? What are the probabilities? How do you use machine learning to do this? And so on. And so this was great, but I personally kind of lost faith in, is this actually going to deliver better cities? Parallel, I've been a bike commuter my whole life, like many of you. This is one of my prized possessions, Maestro Frameworks by the one and only Michael Brown, who we're all thinking of today. Just a great touring commuter bike. I will admit, I've also gotten a gravel bike in the last year or two. That's a lot of fun too. But I also see bikes as just a great kind of intergenerational thing. You can be young, you can be old. My wife and I spent the summer basically going to every single Rails to Trails in the region and taking our kids. And we just love what it brings to your life of getting out onto a bike. And we really, believe that everyone should have access to that. So that's kind of where the startup came from. So it's called Velo AI. And the background is basically, what if we took all of this cool, awesome tech that you find in robots, that you find in autonomous vehicles, and put it on a bike? And you can chuckle and you can be like, oh, you're gonna make autonomous bikes? It's like, no, that's not at all the purpose. Like, an autonomous bike takes out all of the fun that we love about bike riding. But there are other things, the safety aspects, the kind of perceive the environment around you, and sort of other aspects of that of self-driving cars that can be really, really useful for cyclist safety. So this is also a crowd that I probably don't need to go into too much detail on, but if you've looked at the numbers, road fatalities have dramatically reduced over the last 50 years. Tons of reasons for that. There are tons of other resources to go look into that. But one problem is we've really kind of stalled out in the last decade. Even worse than that, for this community, it's gotten way worse. Pedestrians and bikes are dying at rates not found in 20 or 30 years. And it just keeps going up, and the pandemic only made it worse. This is if you haven't seen this by Streetlight Data, this was a fantastic analysis of early bike usage during the pandemic. I think this was about 3 or 6 months in, but they basically found that people just took to their bikes like crazy. And it kind of didn't let up. I haven't checked in the last few months if they have any updates on this number, but one of the surprising things in their data of who was getting onto their bikes again is that it was in cities that you wouldn't expect. So the Portlands and Seattles kind of maintained status quo. They already had tons of people who biked. But it was the Houstons, Dallases, Phoenixes, places that don't have the infrastructure that we want to have, where people really were getting on their bikes. And so it kind of brings up the aspect of like, well, how safe are our streets and what can we do about that? And, I'll jump back into autonomous vehicles. There's a huge promise of autonomous vehicles. The problem is that they just haven't delivered. I was involved at Uber as part of the team the strike team that went in to figure out what happened when we had our Tempe accident, Tempe fatality. I shouldn't even say accident. And super interesting stuff there, but the industry has a long ways to go. So, some in the industry have moved on to not thinking about urban mobility. They're working on trucks, they're working on goods delivery, these little food delivery bots, which, we all have mixed feelings about many of these. But the question is, if the goal is to really save lives in the urban landscape, how do we do that? So we're basically bringing about some technology to try to do that for bikes. And we've called it Copilot. And it basically comes down to, when you look up the statistics, rear end collisions are the dominant causes of bicyclist fatalities. And in the majority of those, driver inattentiveness is a significant factor. So whereas vehicles tend to have crashes at intersections, bicyclists usually get hit on the road. So Copilot is basically, let's take all the smarts of an autonomous vehicle and put it on your bike. I'm sure some of you have probably tried some of these products. So Garmin has a bike-mounted radar. A company out of Australia called Cyclic has a camera, and Garmin now has a radar and a camera. If you're using nothing today and you find yourself on empty roads and you want to know when a car is behind you, go and buy one of these radars. I actually think there are competitors now that are actually cheaper than the Garmin one, but go look into this. They're fantastic if what you're worried about is being on an empty road and one car coming up behind you. The problem is they don't really work in the city. There's just too much going on. They can't understand the level of complexity of urban traffic. And then the cameras are cute and great and they record, but if you need a camera to document something after it happened, you didn't have the opportunity to kind of prevent that thing from happening. And so that's what we're trying to build, is we're trying to build a bike light and sensor that has a lot more intelligence than what these devices can do. So what are we talking about? We had some of these prototypes at the last Open Streets as well as Pedal Pittsburgh. So I think some of you got to see these in person, but it's basically a sensor package with camera, IMU, GPS. It's got artificial intelligence, machine learning. But the most important things is that we're building in visual and audible alerts. And these are both for the user of the bike. So you can hear some chimes. This is similar to how the Garmin works. But we actually have a high decibel alarm that's aimed directly backwards at the car, in hopes that if someone is doing unsafe and approaching you, we can get their attention with seconds to spare before maybe an accident occurs. So a few months ago, this was just kind of like conjecture, like, oh, we're going to try to build this thing. As of the last few weeks, we actually have working prototypes. It's a lot of fun. You can just play with flashy lights. It's really, really cool. But the big thing of what this does for you is this is constantly looking behind you and watching the world. So what you're seeing here is a video, and overlaid on that video is kind of a 3D reconstruction of the world. So the little bike is right here. So there's like a third person view looking down. And it's kind of like how modern ADAS systems work on your cars. And so, things go in and out. These are first generation prototypes, I will say that. But there's enough information here that you can do things like understand that driver's behavior. See how they're behaving around you. Are they slowing down? Are they moving over to pass? Are you expecting them to kind of be nice, or are you expecting them to be a jagoff? And so we're essentially building like an autonomous jagoff detector. And then if we determine that someone is really approaching you in an unsafe way, we want to kind of have an intervention and flash our lights, in critical cases, sound that siren, and hopefully prevent some accidents. Pretty basics. This is kind of what we were conveying in the previous videos. but this idea of understanding the difference of the car that is passing you and the car is approaching dangerously. And that's when we kind of enable these other intervention lights and sound. So the cool thing to tell all of you about is that we want people to test. We've got many people in this meeting already signed up, and thank you. And also thank you for your patience, because we're still building the hardware and software, but we're gonna get these out in the next few weeks. So if you or anyone you know wants to test them, you can head to our website, Velo AI. One thing I will say is we are currently oversubscribed almost 10 to 1. We have 10 times more people that want to play around with these than we're going to build for our initial prototypes. But we're going to try to kind of rotate things in and out. We're actually going to build more than we initially intended. And we just want to really get as good of feedback as we can about how do we build the best product that could be useful as a potential safety device for cyclists. I wanted to return to this and kind of bring up a point that Jesse Singer brings up a lot, that you can improve things by focusing on behavior, but you can only improve things so much. So kind of one of the things she says is putting up a billboard that says speed kills, will get people to think, but it's actually not going to change behavior. And the things that improved against the fatalities the most were the things where when a crash occurred, you were reducing the severity of that crash. So getting seatbelts and getting everyone to wear their seatbelts, that meant when you ran into something, something was holding you back. Similarly for airbags or anti-lock brakes, you could still slam on your brakes, but your car wouldn't spin horribly out of control. And so, I put this up here. I love bike infrastructure, but for many of us, it's kind of like it's an all or nothing. Like, how much can we really do with just a bunch of sharrows? Like, it's really, really hard to change behavior. And so the basic idea of the hardware is like, can we actually intervene and get someone to maybe get their brakes on if they're approaching dangerously using some of the alarm interventions that we're building into our bike light? A little bit more. This is only a prototype version. I know this looks polished. It's held together by duct tape and glue, but we are bringing out a bunch of prototypes. We're going to be playing around with them starting in a few weeks and really getting them out, particularly with the Pittsburgh community. We are turning around and turning this into a product within months. So I guess if you want to stay tuned on that, just get in touch with us, add yourself to our newsletter, follow us on various social media, which I'll have links at the end. It's not actually going to look like this. We're changing things around a lot. And that's where probably the most useful thing to us is talking to people who might actually use this technology, because we want to talk to you about what scenarios are you most concerned about? We want to talk to you about how many hours do you need this to run? That affects what battery do we pick. We also want to talk to you about what's your favorite way to mount it on your bike? What if, this is one of the things where I talk to 30 people and I get 30 different opinions about where and how to put this on your bike. And we want to try to support as much of that as possible. A little bit about our company. So I left the self-driving world a year ago and have been working on this ever since. I was actually working on this part-time before then as well. But basically, we're kind of coming out of stealth with these prototypes and getting them out into the community right now. Our team size doubled from 1 to 2 last week. So we are still very, very small. We are 100% Pittsburgh based. We are working with another startup contract manufacturer to actually build the hardware. They're also a Pittsburgh company. And we're 100% bootstrapped. So we haven't taken any investor money. And one of the big reasons for that is we really want to be beholden to the bicyclist community and the customer. And, I've had investors, I've talked to investors, and they've said crazy things like, oh, you should give up on bikes. That's too niche. You should put this on strollers. And I'm just like, whoa. So we're really trying to build this for the community. We want to work with you on building the community. And if you're interested, get in touch with me, follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Instagram. Allison, who is here, is the number 2 person at Velo. So get in touch with her. She's going to be the one kind of running point on our pilot program. And we're really excited to kind of share more with you as we move forward. So I will stop there.
Wow, thanks, Clark. Appreciate that. I guess I'll start with a question, as I always have questions first. Yeah, one thing that's interesting to me is like, I don't know if you ever read the book Traffic. It's a really amazing book. I'm flaking on the Tom Vanderbilt. It's sort of like the psychology of driving, and it's fairly fascinating. But one of the things that he talks about is the feedback to drivers, and like how that's something that doesn't really exist and has like gotten less and less over time. That's one thing that was interesting to me about that, is that it gives the feedback to drivers. So it had the audible feedback. Are there other, like, does a light change or something, or like things like that? Like what other ways that maybe feedback can be given?
The lights are fully programmable. Actually, at the beginning of the meeting, I went downstairs to kind of go grab the prototype. My kids were playing with a similar toy car at Susan's a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh, it's perfect for showing off demos. But basically, you know, it doesn't like the hand of God against the toy car, because it's like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't look like a car to me. But if I can get this in the kind of sweet spot, it'll start firing. Or, you know, live demo. Armin saw this other night. It was totally working. But
I believe you.
It flashes.
Okay, it flashes
and
different.
It changes the behavior, similar to what it just went. The Garmin does similar when it kind of detects a vehicle on the radar. The Garmin just detects any large metal thing moving toward you. This one's very focused on detecting cars and then tracking them over time and understanding their behavior. So we'll flash lights. The problem is, if someone's just not looking, they're still not even going to see a light sometimes, if they think that they're on an empty road. So that's where we also think we need the sound. But the sound is really a last resort if you're within, you know, 2 to 3 seconds of impending collision.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is there any thought of, like, I know we're not quite there yet in the commercial car market, but of adding like a beacon type of thing to it as well, where like it actually, you know, vehicle to vehicle, like communicates with another car?
This is one of the things where we are designing in the hardware so that we can do that.
Got it.
I want to see a little more movement on the car side. There's a company in the Detroit area that's very focused on this. I've been meaning to kind of talk to them soon. I want to get our prototypes out. But a lot of this is that, you know, the beacon ends up being a very simplified form of the self-driving car, where, oh, we just need this technology and we just need to deploy this technology everywhere. But the problem is, you're always going to have cars that don't have the beacons, cars that aren't listening. You know, do we need to go hunt down every deer in the woods and also give them a beacon too? I think if we over rely on the wrong technology, we might end up with bad solutions. So right now we're just trying to kind of give some feedback to human behavior.
100%. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. In the early days of like when the AVs were starting to really proliferate, the beacon seemed to be like this like silver bullet that I saw a lot of developers looking at, and we were kind of like, hold up, you know?
Yeah.
What happens to the people who don't have a beacon, you know? Like, we're already
remember,
seeing...
I think there was like a CES 7 or 8 years ago where Microsoft had a demo where if you had a Microsoft phone, the car would, you know, stop for you. I'm like, who has a Microsoft phone?
Yeah. Roy, do you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah. Are you planning to do the vehicle-to-vehicle communication kind of thing?
Yeah, that's what Eric was just asking about, the beacons. So we have the hardware to support that when that becomes a thing. So every single one of these devices is a full computer with wireless infrastructure built into it. So we can communicate over, you know, standard wireless comms links. We're just not designing that into this initial product as far as what we need to spend our software time on.
Okay.
Got it.
Is the siren legal? Just out of curiosity.
I'm fascinated because, Roy, you're asking one question, and then Mary, you're posting another comment as Roy in the chat, and they're great.
Roy asked if the alarm is legal.
Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so we are under what a car horn is.
Oh, okay.
So
Cool. Any other questions? I'm gonna say that's a no. Well, Clark, that was really cool. Thanks for sharing that. It is interesting to see the technology trickle down, to bike stuff, because obviously we've seen. I'm guessing a lot of the stuff we're seeing in cars now came from the autonomous vehicle sector, in terms of like all the radars that are now on cars and whatnot to protect the car. But it's good seeing it, come to bike stuff as well. Do you know if there's other people working on similar, or do you have competitors right now, or where's that at?
There's a company in San Francisco that's doing something kind of similar, but I don't think they're going on this kind of approach of really trying to get the feedback to the driver. They're trying to kind of build off of like, oh, you just need more situational awareness for the user. The other thing I will say is kind of in our pilot programs and after we get a product out, we also really want to use this to kind of isolate the roadways. This is kind of like a soft infrastructure. At all times, hard infrastructure is better. The more protected bike lanes and trails and other alternative routes that we can build, that is much better. But imagine if we could get heat maps of like every dangerous interaction in a city and kind of what are the critical thoroughfares for bikes and how to kind of focus the infrastructure dollars to make things as safe as we can. So that's really where we're trying to go with this.
Cool. And then so it takes the video, does it like where does it go? Like do you have an app that associates to it and then it just keeps it all, or how does that work?
Yeah, we'll have an app. Lots of things still to be figured out, but the video will go to the cloud for kind of aggregation. But all of the kind of artificial intelligence processing happens right on the device. Okay. So I think we'll have the option for when people own this as a product to like retain privacy of all of their video. But that'll probably be a user setting of, do you want to share or do you want to remain private? And we'll give people the option.
Yeah, that's one thing I've been liking about seeing all the new products and videos and what Armin's doing, is like just, I don't know how much drivers are recognizing that they're being recorded frequently, but I feel like it has to have an effect knowing that something that somebody does could be used against them at some point. So I think the more ways to make this easier, the better. I think for us too. Unfortunately, we have to resort to that. I almost kind of compare it to like how much things have changed with people recording police officers in a way too. So anyway, well, thanks, Clark. Unless there's any other questions, really appreciate you coming in and talking about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Was that a question, Abe? You kind of answered the privacy surveillance. Okay, let's move on to the rest of the agenda. Let me find it on my side. So I'll be brief. We're at 7:04. The project updates and issue updates. I should have added an open to that so that if we have questions, but just wanted to give a brief, some things that I'm hearing from like conversations I'm having with the city and meetings and whatnot. We've all seen the 15 mile per hour signage has finally gone in Riverview after we worked with Councilman Bobby Wilson to pass the 15 mile per hour legal in city parks, which was sort of a loophole to help kind of just to obviously lower the speed limits, but also just begin that conversation on lowering speed limits. Because right now on most city streets, we're stuck to 25 miles per hour. So we worked with the councilman's office to lower the speed limits and the signs finally went in. However, we don't know what's happening with the other ones. So just putting it out there that, you know, I think the best sort of tactic to get there. So those of you in districts that say are Highland Park or Frick or Shenley, I think contacting your council person right now to ask for that would be really beneficial, and I think make that happen. I think the north side one happened because Councilman Wilson was very interested in it. I think Highland Park's going to happen, but in general, I think they're not really falling all over themselves right now to change all the signs. So I think just having that council person to help with the nudge would be good, and also a pretty you know, fairly direct campaign that we can work on. So just putting that out there. I know that there's no council person right now in Shenley and Frick, unfortunately. There's other parks as well that could use a drop in speed limit. I've seen other parks in the South Side, in Sheridan Park, etc. So just wanted to put that out there as you know, hopefully this will help. You know, the data does show that lowering speed limits actually does have an effect on driver behavior, especially in the more extreme side of the driver behavior, which is what is the most deadly behavior. So infrastructure projects. We're talking.
You've got a couple questions in the chat. Who are the council people?
Thank you. I thought who are the council people? What council person? Yeah, I know that's what I said. Frick and Shenley right now have not necessarily a council person at the moment, but Teresa Kale Smith is the acting council person there, and she did co-sponsor the legislation. So I think right now, you know, the iron's hot for talking to her. So if you're in her district, I think it would be really helpful. And she is somebody who very much does care very deeply about constituent complaints, much more than, say, a nonprofit complaint. Hi, Teresa, if you watch this. Is there an enforcement mechanism? Currently, there's the city will likely not be enforcing. They are not allowed to use radar. They have to use LiDAR, which includes stopwatch. Or sorry, not LiDAR. I forgot the name of it. Sorry, I'm flaking. But they have to use a stopwatch. You know, I think the important thing is, you know, and it kind of sucks to say this, but, you know, in the unfortunate event of a crash, if the speed limit is 15 and they're shown to have been going higher than that, that can also affect, fast car, thank you. That can also affect, you know, the outcome of, you know, say the crash reporting. So VASCAR. I know I'm so used to just radar and LiDAR like in my head. Cool. A little bit before we were talking, before we started recording, we were talking about how South Aiken was getting painted today. They're actively out there. I went out, took some pictures. It's looking pretty good. Right now, they're paint. I don't know if they're going to be going into a more heavy-duty thermoplastic, which is unfortunately what they had to remove before. But just knowing how things work, like there's different crews that do different projects, do different parts of the project. You know, we saw the signs go up like a couple weeks ago. You know, it's going to be a completely different crew that might do the thermo. So we don't know when or if that's going to happen, but it's happening and it's pretty exciting. And there's still going to have to be putting in the flex posts along it, as well as redoing. They're going to be repaving completely that section between Center and Bomb, and then also doing a lot of signal work to make it all work better and align with the new design. So ultimately, you'll have that continuous connection from Ellsworth, you know, all the way to Heron Avenue, essentially, of bike lanes. The other projects I've been hearing about is Ellsworth. They're saying that they're going to be They are still committed to doing their traffic calming project along there. We may find one more public meeting to let the public know what's happening. There is no date as far as I'm aware, but all signs point to it is happening. It's getting late in the year, but they claim they can go until Thanksgiving. So, and whether they do it in full or in phased is still unclear to me. But anyway, I just got the confirmation yesterday that they're still planning on doing it this year. I'm hearing some other things I'm hearing is the little Lawrenceville cut through under the 40th Street Bridge should be going in October, which is going to be really exciting for myself, but also just to help make that connection between the back streets of Lawrenceville to the Strip District. So I'm going to ask, oh, that is exciting. It is. What were some other ones?
Eric?
Right. Yeah.
Can I ask about that? What is the design that they're going to go for on that?
I don't think there's much of a design. So the big holdup has been that there's a development going in on the western side of the bridge, so the Strip District side of the bridge. And they are, it's private property. So the city doesn't have much say about what they do through there. They do have some say, but not a ton. And so if you go to the little hole where they're going to cut through, you can actually see the beginnings of it. It looks like a sidewalk, but I can't really see what's happening beyond that. I just know that the city and them did work out some sort of agreement for it. Essentially, if you want to see where it's at, if you're on Willow Street in Lawrenceville going toward the Strip, toward the 40th Street Bridge, at the stop sign of Willow and 40th Street, if you look directly straight ahead, you'll see a little section that they're going to punch through and allow bikes to cut through there. So it's more like, I would more call it similar to what they did in the South Side to get under the Birmingham Bridge. So there's going to be some paint markings and whatnot to direct people to it. But once you're in there, it's a good 15 feet wide or something like that. I mean, it's wide enough, I think, for a car to fit through, but they don't want cars to go through it. And then that will connect, through the private property over to 39th Street. So you can completely avoid Butler legally. Let me see. I had other projects. I'm trying to think if there are other projects that are upcoming. There are a couple others. Oh, Stanton Avenue was another one that been hearing about. So they are planning, there's now Engage page, it's live. They are planning a series of speed cushions, which are new to Pittsburgh, along Stanton Avenue, as well as a climbing lane. Unfortunately, it does not go from Butler Street up. It goes to basically where all of the parking, thanks Abe for posting that, where all the parking is pretty packed. Just after that, along the cemetery, a climbing lane will start from Butler Street and then head up, toward the speed cushions to slow people down. There's going to be some pedestrian changes, but they are planning a public meeting sometime at the end of September, tentatively the 26th. But that's also Rosh Hashanah, so I don't know if they're going to stick with that or not. Pretty sure that's does anyone have any questions about that so far? I'm trying to keep up with the chat as will they be adding any narrow Jersey barriers? What is that for, Abe? To what? Is that
that was jokingly about the 40th Street cut through.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that would be funny if it looked exactly the same. Cool. I wanted to move on because I don't have any other infrastructure updates at the moment. But one thing the city announced today, which I thought was kind of cool, was the new city budget tool. There is so interestingly enough, the kind of demonstrated why we've been putting so much of our efforts into city budgets and whatnot through the years. In that document, it literally says the budget is one of the most powerful tools for influencing change. While it's a slog, I do agree with that. This was literally just announced today, so I'm learning myself about what this is all about. But they have a page where to offer transparency to the budget. And then most interesting, I'm going to drop this in the chat as well. There is now you can literally just contact them and talk about different things in the budget, things that you might want, things that you don't like, etc. Definitely want to start using this tool toward advocacy. As I think since we've been paying attention to budgets for so long, I feel like we'll be at a good advantage to help influence this and use this tool, because a lot of our advocates are so used to already talking about budget stuff. So definitely encourage people to use that. I'm still learning more about this tool because they literally dropped it today, like around 2 o'clock. So, but just wanted to share that as another tool for everybody as we're going into budget season. Definitely highly suggest everybody to also submit a lot of your budget requests to this tool as well as we're going through it. Doesn't seem like there's any restrictions on using this at the moment, so we better take advantage of it while we can. I don't know much more about that. And then I'm just going to keep moving down. Next weekend, also, I just want to put a plug in for our 20th birthday party. Bike Pittsburgh's turning 20, which is kind of wild to think about. And we're throwing a big party. It's going to be at the Opera in the Strip. It's a big building. Those of you who have been to our parties in the past, it's the same spot we used to do them a long time ago, do the Bike Fest parties. It's a great space. We're going to have, a whole bunch of different stuff. There's a beer release there. But if you just go to bikepgh.org/20, we have tickets there. So really hope to see you all in person at our 20th birthday. With that, I'm going to open it up. Were there any questions? Did I miss anything, or any things that we didn't talk about? I guess go ahead, Abe. Were you about to say something? I'll just jump in. One thing that I think we do need to continue to talk about is and I'm sure Armin will agree, is the parking and bike lanes issue. Another thing that I have heard that I do want to share is that the city has started to price out how to harden the Penn Ave bike lanes. I don't know what that's going to lead to. I just know that they have told me that they are beginning the process to price it out, which is the first step. But so I would say just keep those 311s that come in to justify them spending money on that at some point, because we all know that that's probably one of the biggest, one of the worst places in the city. But we're doing what we can to continue to raise the issue. We've written letters. We've co-written letters with the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership on it. So short of doing an action at the moment, that's where we're at. And if there's anything that anyone wants to add to that,
I'm always happy to talk about cars and bike lanes.
Yeah, do it.
So as you know, a lot of people have been reporting through 311 with the dashcam app. I think we're close to 300 reports. Most of them are cars parked in bike lanes. And the Pittsburgh police are getting very annoyed because they get all of these reports. So they agreed to monitor the bike lanes daily, and they have a dedicated person to go once a day through the bike lanes, which obviously isn't solving the problem. But they said take appropriate enforcement when necessary. So I reached out to the commander in that district, Matthew Lackner, and I said, has there been a single ticket? Have these officers been issuing tickets? Like, have a single ticket been issued? And he said, I don't have the numbers. So I don't know if I don't have the numbers means yes, is it 0 or is it more than 0? But I'm not telling you. And I'm pretty sure I don't have the numbers means 0. So we've instigated some change, right? They're monitoring the bike lanes, but they're not doing anything. Of course, what we really want is parking authority to be handling this. We don't want police involved. That needs city council to get involved. I'm curious if anyone here is good with FOIAs, or I think in Pittsburgh they're called public records requests. Is anyone here willing to FOIA the city to get the number of tickets that have been issued for cars and bike lanes? If other people have experience doing that?
Yeah. Well, I have little experience with that, to be honest. I'm not even sure if it needs a FOIA, like a proper FOIA request. I have a contact at the police department who's the sort of data person. And so when we were researching some pedestrian, I was researching how many tickets were issued to pedestrians for jaywalking. She was very happy to give me that info, and it was 3 in like 10 years. 2 of which I think were on Carson Street. So maybe that could be a good start. I'll dig up her contact and pass that along, see if she just does it. And if not, then maybe we can go to the higher level. Yeah, I'm curious if talking to Lackner, if they're not issuing tickets, or if they're at least telling people to move, because that's while not is exciting, it's still that feedback like we were talking about.
Yeah, and my understanding is they are talking to people and telling them to move, but in my experience on those bike lanes, 70% of the time there's not somebody in the car, so they're also just like hanging around waiting for somebody to get back. I mean, best I can tell, if you don't want to pay for parking downtown, you can park in the bike lane and it will be free. And
I think the other issue too, and talking to Commander Lackner as well about this, is that it is up to police discretion, and often they do sympathize, say, with the delivery drivers. They're not going to be issuing tickets to delivery drivers, and that's also, in my experience, like one of the bigger violators as well are the FedEx and UPS and Amazon delivery drivers as well.
Yeah, I see Susan's had her hand up for a while.
Oh yeah, sorry, Susan.
Yeah, so I had a question about contacting council people about, I guess anything in general, but with going back to the 50-mile-per-hour sign in parks. So does it only help to contact the council person in that district?
It depends on the issue. Oh, go ahead.
Or this particular issue, I guess. And if you're not in that district, I mean, you don't have to tell them you're not in the district, right?
In the particular case of Squirrel Hill, Shenley Park is technically not in Erica Strasberger's district. But when I contact, in the past, when I have contacted Corey O'Connor about things that affect the Shenley Park, or at least the northern part of Shenley Park, I have copied Erica because it basically touches on her district, and I have found her very supportive and sympathetic. That's one data point about one area.
So I guess I'm just wondering, it doesn't help to contact my own council, a council person who's not in that district. It's something that the council person has like control over or influence over their district. It's like a fief, that's their fiefdom. It's not something that the entire council then.
Yeah, I would say that's, I mean, citywide issues, I would say any council person, but if it's a very specific thing, like changing a stop sign or whatever, the council, that's literally their job, to deal with those issues in their council district.
Okay.
And I would even say that that's one of, the issues we've been having in downtown, is that the council person doesn't seem to be to care very much about the issue. Now, with that said, the council person is changing next year for at least the Penn Ave bike lane. It's going to be Bobby Wilson who's going to be there, who passed the no parking bike lanes law to begin with. So hopefully we can help use, the influence of a council person better into the future.
So I would elaborate that for something like a stop sign in a particular district, yes, just that council person. But if it's something that's going to come up to council that may be brought up by some other council person, if my council person is going to be part of that discussion, or I want my council person to be receptive to it, then I will certainly call my council person saying this issue is coming down the line. Please take this position on it.
Okay.
That's if it's coming up to council for council discussion.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
and I'll add that. Oh, go ahead.
Hello. Yes, I'm just on a call. I'm on a flip phone, so I'm sorry I can't see any of you all there. But yeah, I'm John McNulty here in the West End, and I would just add to that. You're always free to go any Tuesday morning to speak at City Council for 3 minutes. And they really welcome folks that have something sort of rational to say, because they get a whole spectrum. But like for instance, I was pushing more for bike lanes here in the West End, and like Lewis and Clark, eco-tourism infrastructure, and Corey O'Connor was more receptive, at least at first, and good old Teresa, I've known for a while now, but, it always helps to let their colleagues know that, so that when they have conversations, and then certainly going to, the state level, like Wayne Fontana, he put a lot of pressure on city councilwoman, and all of a sudden she started talking bike lanes, and that was because a grant came in from the state. Yeah. So, it's always good to share the information. You can always speak for free for 3 minutes a week, That's
true. That's a really good suggestion. I was also going to mention one thing that we're also sort of in the works. It speaks to this question as well, is that we've been toying with the idea of asking council for a post-agenda hearing on parking in the bike lanes. And that's something that would be like citywide, right? Now, not every council district even has bike lanes, so maybe not all of them will show up or care. But one thing a post-agenda can do is like, because of the power of council, they could potentially bring in anybody who needs to be there. So for instance, maybe we can have, council can request somebody from the parking authority. Council can request someone from the police department, someone from DOMI, and it kind of forces them all to get together and have that conversation. Again, we haven't totally solidified that yet, but it is something that we are considering at the moment and trying to get and looking to get in place as a way to sort of force the issue, so to speak, and talk about it. Anyway, that's the end of my section. I'm going to turn this over to everybody else for the remaining time, so that we can talk about anything that's happening in your particular neighborhood. I'll just leave that up to you guys. I'm not going to call it out at anybody, but if somebody wanted to go ahead and unmute and just talk about something that's going on in your neighborhood, or any issues you might be having, or things you need support for, or events like parking day. I know you gave that plug in the beginning, Armin, but not to pick on you.
Yeah, I'll talk about parking day again, and I'll post our beautifully designed flyer in the chat. So yeah, I spoke about it briefly, but parking day is a yearly protest, and it's supposed to last all weekend, but we're just doing it Friday. And throughout the world, people are just taking over parking spots and doing different activities. So we're having some lightweight games, some twister and sidewalk chalk and washable paint. And I have a little parklet I built for the beginning of the pandemic because I don't have a backyard. So I would take over a parking space outside my house all the summer of 2020. So I attached some wheels to that. And if the wheels are strong enough, I'm going to roll it down 6 blocks to Main and Butler. And if they're not, I don't know what I'll do. But
you can borrow our Bikes at Work trailer.
It's 8 feet by 6 feet and about 100 pounds. So
8 feet by 6 feet. Well, as long as you can get it above the wheels, it should work. That thing is rated to 300 pounds.
Oh, it's a vehicle.
No, it's a trailer.
It's a trailer. Okay.
It's a bike trailer. Bikes at Work.
Okay.
Is the brand.
Okay, yeah, if it fits, I will let you know.
It's available.
Yeah, is it at the 43rd Street office?
Yep.
Okay,
It's
great. So if I get
it's going to be in use this weekend for the women and non-binary camping trip, but anytime next week you'll be able to check it out.
Okay, well, we need it this Friday, so.
Oh yeah.
But there's handles, so we can carry it. I just need 2 people to carry it.
Got it.
Anyway, it should be a good time, and we'd love to see support if you're around Maine and Butler, just stopping by for a bit and saying hello.
What day was that?
It is this Friday, September 16th, and we'll be there from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I posted a link that talks about the Greater Parking Day worldwide, and I believe there's 2 in Pittsburgh. There's another one on Hazelwood Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a couple others in Pennsylvania, but there's only 4 in Pennsylvania. So we're really making a stance here in Pittsburgh with our 2.
Thanks, Armin.
Yeah.
Anyone else wanna share anything?
The other infrastructure update is Penn Circle. And so the URA posted an article about it. I can link it in the chat, but construction for that 2-way conversion is beginning September of 2022 and ending in December of 2023. So more than a year of construction. And I did ride it this evening, and they're spray paint down, sort of marking out some of the protected intersections, which is pretty exciting to see. But still going to be a little while before that goes in.
Cool. Thanks for that intel, Abe. I saw that as well and didn't know if they actually were starting. We actually asked Domi about that the other day, and they didn't really know what was going on either at the moment. So at least the person I talked to. So thanks for that intel that they're actually starting to mark, and it looks like construction is on its way.
Great. Can I give an update about the West End area out here?
Yeah, man. Of course.
Yeah, great. So this is John McNulty. I'm part of the West End Bike Committee here. So yeah, this, as a lot of you know, there's kind of a black hole of non-connectivity here in the West End Circle area. But one of the good things that has happened is that the Old Stone Tavern, which is about over a mile from the river, has been sold to a private family who wants to restore it and turn it into like a tourist destination. So, more than just the residents living out here, we can see it as a vital economic, asset to have bike lanes. So there is a bike lane proposed, and that again was the Wayne Fontana grant. And right now it's a road share down through Wabash and Woodville Avenue. I've been advocating, will continue to do so, to go a step beyond and engage. The next step is to find an architect out there, an engineer, civil engineer, to design something that I can see in my head, but I don't have the skills to draw out and make real. But I do have photographs of the area. There's an old rails to trails between State Route Highway 51 and the Sawmill Run stream. It's very green. It's all ready to go. The ownership used to be a coal railroad line that brought coal from Banksville down the river. So it's just a spur line. It's been abandoned for many years. This is the one that's the lower bridge over the Parkway West as you're coming in from the airport to downtown. I had been working pre-pandemic with the folks in Beachview. You might have heard of Seldom Seen, which is a beautiful green area. I call it ecotherapy. People who work all day just go there. You'll feel like you're in the Laurel Highlands, to connect all of that and have a safe, dedicated bike lane from the riverfront to the Old Stone Tavern, over the Parkway West to Seldom Seen, and make it a connected corridor where if you're coming in from the airport, you don't even have to drive into the city, have a better parking area near Seldom Seen, park once, have your bike, have the entire city access to you from that point. It would be a great sales pitch for Visit Pittsburgh for people coming in here, especially for the first time. Anyways, Gavin White from River Life Task Force, I met him this past spring. I've been invited to participate in a stakeholders boat cruise on September 25th with folks from Manchester. So it's a good timing with these projects to talk about, they want to have a year-on-year grant to envision what could be in this part of town. So I'm going to be pitching that. And if there's any help out there, any engineers, people will be willing to, at least get some drawings on the board. There could be a camping facility. And again, this could help facilitate ecotourism. And yes, it is the first 2 miles on the National Historic Trail of Lewis and Clark. We just had a convention in August, so people are becoming more aware of us nationwide. And the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail begins right where the Great Allegheny Passage Trail ends. So there's more than ever reasons to really get. And I did have a question if Mobilify has been looking at, safe, something like Hot Metal Bridge bike transport over, a path over the West End Bridge and connect with the north side. Obviously, that's a part of it. And going on down the Ohio River to McKees Rocks and all the rest of it. But, I'm starting with the Old Stone Tavern.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great update. Thanks. I know that the trolley trails started some movement as well. But so I heard you're potentially looking for like a designer of some type to draw something up, or did I hear that correctly?
We always like grad students, kids in college that are, need a project. That's why we got Thomas Kelly and stuff.
I was going to suggest that because right now is a good time to get in with the universities as they're just starting. They might be looking for some projects as well. But I'll keep my ears peeled. If I hear something that comes up, I'll be sure to send them your way.
Yeah, and if I can get any motion with River Life Task Force, they seem kind of enthusiastic about it. I see this area as a key to ecotourism and when I speak at city council, what do I have to offer Deb Gross's people and people out, in East Liberty and things like that? Well, this is a nice place to come to. This is a great place to come and relax, and we could have zip lining someday and fly fishing and all kinds of stuff. It's like the mountains out here, and the staircases. I mean, don't even get me started with them. We got to keep maintaining them because it's like mountain climbing. It's great. It's all you need to live here. I live in Elliott. You don't need a car to live here. We should encourage more people to live without a car, less gridlock, better health outcomes. I mean, I used to spend a lot of time in Holland and stuff like that. Once the bike culture takes on, everybody gets it. Like everybody,
Yeah.
And I mean, you don't have to be a bike every day, but I know plenty of people who have normal jobs. And they want to come home and get out on their bike and to have a place to go, like seldom seen, connect to the rest of the city, to the north side and everything on a safe, dedicated. People do it anyways, but there'd be a lot more, obviously, and you guys all know that, if there were safe bike lanes, So.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing.
I welcome any more voices.
Yeah.
Keep doing it as long as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if 2 or 3 of us spoke at a certain time at city council, that would help. If they have like Noreen and I, Noreen Beatty is the president of the Old Stone Tavern. She spoke for 3 minutes, and like 2 speakers later, I spoke with something related, but similar. So it kind of impounds it, and then you network with those that are there in attendance. Other city council people. Again, you mentioned Bobby Wilson. I spoke with him a couple times, and Corey was great. He came out to a block party we had for the Old Stone Tavern. The new owners had that on July 23rd. Rich Fitzgerald was there. He's a big proponent. Just so you know, I'm working on like a cultural whiskey rebellion, early Meriwether Lewis travels in Western Pennsylvania in the 1790s to connect to South Park, to, Oliver Miller House, and then down to the Mon Valley. So I hope, some of you folks will run into folks like Lisa Brown and things like that who are working on the, Salmo One Watershed Association kind of thing. It'd be great for everybody. You just get around better. You can connect to the Montour Trail and all the rest of them. But it's not going to be easy getting through the West End, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We can do it, though. Yeah. I would invite anybody who wants to walk on that, see that segment, and they'll show you where a very excellent place to have a camping. It would really add to the appeal of Pittsburgh to know that people who've been camping on the Great Allegheny Passage Trail, can continue camping not nearby in Butler County or Beaver County and, Rocky Creek State Park, but right here, 2 miles from the city. So, there's opportunity for that too, I think.
Thanks. Thanks for sharing. I did just hear about the Route 51 watershed people who are, in short, Route 51 is kind of a mess of flooding, and they're looking to kind of rewild a lot of Route 51. And there's a meet and greet next week on the 20th. I think it's on the Tuesday, the 20th.
Yes. Right.
I just posted a link. I posted a link in the chat for those interested in that subject. Let's move on. Time we have. Anyone else with some updates? Hearing none. We'll just going once, going twice. Up. Go for it, Morgan.
Eric, hey. This is kind of recent, as in like today. I don't know if you're able to like get out of people or glean out of people, but I was riding, so the new Bartlett-Whiteman protected intersection they did there, right there, that at Bartlett and Whiteman, that like section where they've done like the, the curvy parts as you go down Whiteman. Okay. So I've already been having trouble with people turning right from Whiteman onto Bartlett in the actual bike lane, thinking it's a slip lane or a right turn lane of some sort. And yesterday, actually, there was a Jeep like behind me who tried to do it right behind me in the bike lane. And I like kind of turned around and told him, hey, this isn't a car lane, it's a bike lane. He got mad and drove over all of the flex posts around me and drove in front of me. But
oh God.
Yeah. Anyways, I was biking to work this morning and I noticed that all of the flex posts on that northwest corner were gone. Like either someone had taken them out. They're pretty easy to unscrew and screw back in, which I've done with many of the ones on Shenley Drive on my way to work. But I just wasn't sure if it was like a construction project going on or something that might be, because they'd repaved a small section like right to the north of it, on that northwest corner. So I was like, or maybe it was whatever. I can't remember what's north and south, but right next to one of the corners, they'd repaved something there, but they didn't do anything else to it from what I could tell today. So I don't know. I just didn't want to screw them back in and make construction people mad if I don't have to, but I don't know if you have any way of finding that out, or if you...
Yeah. Can you send a picture so I can like, can you just like snap a picture of the spot? So at least I have like a visual to point to, because I can ask around, but it would be helpful just to have that picture. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take a picture tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm not 100% familiar with exactly what that looks like, but the picture would be helpful.
Send it to 311. 311 it.
I did. I have.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, just drop me an email with a picture in, and I'll ask one of my contacts.
Perfect. Thank you, Eric.
Sure. Well, with that, hearing no other, I'm going to call the meeting to end. Appreciate seeing you all and sticking with it. And Clark, you're still here if you're listening. Thanks for attending and for presenting about your product. Pretty exciting stuff. With that, I'm going to close the meeting and hope to see you guys in person and hopefully at our party. Yeah, great to see everybody.
Catch you at the party.
And the meeting here. Yep. Awesome. See you.
Thanks. It was great. Safe travels, everybody.
Thanks. You
Enjoy
too.
the weather.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thanks.
A lot of cool things happening.
Yep. Bye-bye.